I am Trudy, 34 years old, and the systems administrator at Nexus Technologies for 8 years. I built their entire IT infrastructure from scratch, managed all critical systems, and kept everything running smoothly. Then the director hired his entitled nephew with zero experience and gave me an ultimatum that changed everything. Babysit this incompetent golden boy or resign. I chose option 3. I took my coat and walked out with my dignity intact. 5 days later, I had 38 missed calls from panicking executives. If you have ever been undervalued at work, drop a comment about how you handled it. Like and subscribe if you want to hear how I turned those missed calls into the sweetest professional revenge. My journey at Nexus Technologies began right after I graduated with honors with my computer science degree. I had always been passionate about creating efficient systems and solving complex problems. Even as a child, I would take apart my computer just to put it back together, fascinated by how all the components worked together. By college, I was the go-to person whenever classmates had technical issues. My professors often commented that I had a natural talent for understanding system architecture and security protocols. When I interviewed at Nexus Technologies, Director Marcus Fletcher seemed genuinely impressed with my portfolio of projects and technical knowledge. He nodded approvingly as I explained my approach to network security and database management. The company was still relatively small then, with about 50 employees, but Marcus had ambitious growth plans. He told me they needed someone who could build and maintain their IT infrastructure as they expanded. "We need someone who can think ahead of our growth," Marcus said during that first interview. "Someone who can build systems that will scale with us." I was thrilled when they offered me the position. My first day was filled with excitement as I walked through the office, meeting my new colleagues and assessing the current state of their technology. The systems were outdated with minimal security protocols and inefficient backup procedures. Marcus gave me surprising freedom to upgrade everything as I saw fit, providing the budget I needed to transform their digital infrastructure. Over those first few months, I formed connections with several supportive coworkers. Diana from Human Resources was unlike most HR representatives I had met before. She genuinely cared about employee well-being and often checked in to see how I was adjusting. Jackson joined the IT team about a year after me, and we developed a strong professional relationship based on mutual respect for each other's skills. Rachel from Finance became another ally, appreciating how my streamlined systems made her accounting processes more efficient. Nexus Technologies specialized in healthcare management systems, providing software solutions to hospitals and medical practices. As the company grew, so did the complexity of our infrastructure. I modernized everything from the ground up, creating robust backup protocols, designing comprehensive security systems, and implementing efficient workflows. Within 2 years, I had earned the title of Primary Systems Administrator, with full access privileges to every aspect of our technical infrastructure. During those early years, Marcus regularly acknowledged my contributions. When a competitor experienced a devastating data breach, he praised my foresight in establishing our multi-layered security system. When we landed our first major hospital client, he credited the reliability of our infrastructure as a key selling point. I felt valued, my expertise respected, and my input sought on important decisions. As the company grew to over 100 employees, I expanded the IT department, hiring and training staff who could handle routine maintenance and customer support. I personally maintained oversight of the core systems, ensuring everything ran smoothly while continually implementing improvements. The company culture began to shift as Marcus gained more power and influence within the industry. Board meetings became less about innovation and more about profit margins. The first signs of nepotism appeared when Marcus hired his brother-in-law as marketing director, despite his limited experience in the healthcare sector. I noticed other executive family members joining in various capacities, but none directly affected my department, so I kept my head down and focused on my work. Anticipating potential issues, I became meticulous about documentation. Every system, protocol, and procedure was detailed in comprehensive manuals. I created troubleshooting guides, security procedures, and disaster recovery plans. This wasn't just professional thoroughness. Something in the changing atmosphere made me feel it was necessary to record everything. Despite the gradual shifts in company culture, I remained personally invested in Nexus's success. Our software helped hospitals function more efficiently, ultimately improving patient care. I took pride in knowing that my work contributed to better healthcare outcomes. I regularly worked weekends to implement updates with minimal disruption to our clients, often going beyond my job description to ensure everything ran perfectly. The recognition for my efforts had dwindled over the years. Where Marcus once praised my work publicly, he now seemed to take it for granted. The systems I built worked so reliably that they became invisible, only noticed on the rare occasions when issues arose. Still, I took professional satisfaction in knowing that the company's success rested on the foundation I had built. The infrastructure I designed enabled everything from payroll processing to client demonstrations. My dedication remained unwavering, even as I sensed the company values changing around me. In retrospect, I should have recognized the warning signs, but I was too focused on maintaining and improving our systems to see what was coming. The comfortable salary and the professional pride in what I had built blinded me to the vulnerability of my position. I never imagined that 8 years of exemplary work could be so quickly devalued. Jackson often joked that the company would fall apart without me. "You are the wizard behind the curtain, Trudy," he would say. "Nobody sees all you do, but this place would crash and burn if you took a 2-week vacation." I would laugh it off, never considering that I might one day test that theory. Looking back, I realized I had created something both invaluable and invisible. The better I made our systems, the less visible my daily contribution became. I had built myself into a position of critical importance, yet declining recognition, a dangerous combination in a corporate environment increasingly focused on appearances over substance. The first time I met Bradley Fletcher, I knew he spelled trouble. He strutted into the office on a Monday morning designer suit perfectly tailored to his 25-year-old frame, not a hair out of place. Marcus called an impromptu meeting to introduce his nephew as our new IT strategy consultant. I exchanged glances with Jackson, both of us wondering what qualifications this young man possessed to consult on strategy for systems he had never seen. "Bradley has fresh ideas from his business major that will help take our IT department to the next level," Marcus announced to the team. I noticed he avoided making eye contact with me as he spoke. "He will be working closely with all of you, particularly Trudy, to understand our current infrastructure and recommend strategic improvements." After the meeting, Marcus pulled me aside. "I need you to show Bradley the ropes," he set his tone, making it clear this was not a request. "Walk him through all our systems, give him admin access for training purposes, and help him understand how everything works. This is in addition to your regular duties, of course." I maintained my professionalism despite the sinking feeling in my stomach. "Does Bradley have an IT background?" I asked. Marcus waved away my question. "He has a business degree from Wharton and has taken some coding classes. He is a quick learner." That first day with Bradley set the tone for what was to come. As I attempted to explain our network architecture, he constantly checked his phone, barely listening. When I showed him our server room, he interrupted my explanation of our redundancy protocols to ask where he could get better cell reception. His questions revealed a complete lack of technical knowledge, focused entirely on industry buzzwords rather than actual functionality. "We should move everything to the cloud," he declared confidently after just 2 hours of training. "That is what all the top companies are doing." I patiently explained that we already utilize cloud services where appropriate but maintained on-premises servers for certain functions due to healthcare compliance requirements and performance needs. He nodded as if he understood, but I could tell he was simply waiting for me to finish speaking. The first major incident occurred just 3 days later. Bradley had been given basic admin access to our test environment for training purposes. I returned from lunch to discover he had incorrectly configured several server settings, causing the entire test system to become unstable. When I asked what changes he had made, he shrugged and said he was just exploring options. I spent that evening restoring the test environment from backups and fixing the configuration issues, staying until 11 at night to ensure everything was ready for a client demo the next day. I documented the incident, thoroughly noting the specific changes Bradley had made and the time required to fix them. At the team meeting the following morning, I was stunned when Bradley spoke up before I could report the issue. "I identified a vulnerability in our test environment yesterday," he announced confidently. "I explored it thoroughly and resolved the stability issues. This is exactly why we need fresh eyes on our systems." When I attempted to clarify what had actually happened, Marcus cut me off. "Thank you, Bradley, for your proactive approach. This is exactly the kind of initiative we need." The look he gave me made it clear that contradicting his nephew would not be welcomed. Over the next few weeks, Bradley was gradually given access to increasingly sensitive systems, despite demonstrating no improvement in his technical skills. I documented each instance of his incompetence, keeping detailed records of errors he made and the time I spent fixing them. I also began to notice that he was being included in client meetings, where he would confidently misrepresent our technical capabilities, promising features that either did not exist or would require months of development. I attempted to discuss my concerns with Marcus, scheduling a meeting to address the growing issues. "I am worried about some of the promises being made to clients," I began carefully. "Bradley has been committing to implementation timelines that are not realistic given our current resources." Marcus leaned back in his chair, his expression hardening. "It sounds like you are not being a team player, Trudy. Bradley brings fresh energy and ambition to the department. Perhaps you could learn something from his innovative approach." I left that meeting realizing that my years of expertise were now valued less than Bradley's fresh energy. The situation grew worse when Rachel from finance accidentally revealed that Bradley was making significantly more than me, despite his junior position and lack of experience. "I assumed you knew," she said apologetically after letting it slip during lunch. "His base salary is 30% higher than yours. Plus, he has a performance bonus structure. Marcus pushed it through last month." The next confrontation with Bradley occurred when I discovered him attempting to alter our security protocols to allow remote access without two-factor authentication. "This is too complicated for clients," he complained when I stopped him. "We need to streamline the login process." "This security measure is required for HIPAA compliance," I explained firmly. "Removing it would put us at risk of losing certification and facing potential legal issues." He rolled his eyes dramatically. "You people always overstate security risks. Just make it happen." "No," I said firmly. "I will not compromise patient data security." He stormed off to Marcus's office. An hour later, I received an email from Marcus telling me to find a compromise solution that addresses Bradley's concerns. I responded with a detailed explanation of the compliance requirements and the potential consequences of the proposed changes. The matter was temporarily dropped, but I knew it was just the beginning. The tension began spreading to other team members as well. Jackson approached me after Bradley took credit for a network optimization project Jackson had completed. "How are you dealing with this guy?" he asked, frustration evident in his voice. "He is literally claiming work he had nothing to do with, and Marcus is eating it up." I shared Jackson's frustration, but tried to maintain professionalism. "Document everything," I advised him. "Keep records of your work and contributions. That is all we can do right now." As the weeks passed, the atmosphere in the IT department grew increasingly strained. Bradley would make arbitrary decisions without consulting the team. Marcus would back him, regardless of the consequences, and the rest of us would scramble to mitigate the damage while receiving none of the credit for keeping things running smoothly. I began to feel like I was living in an alternate reality, one where 8 years of dedicated service and proven expertise meant nothing compared to family connections and empty confidence. Little did I know the situation was about to get much worse. The tension at Nexus Technologies reached new heights when we began preparing for a major client demonstration for Memorial Regional Hospital, a potential contract worth millions. This was exactly the type of large-scale implementation I excelled at planning, having successfully managed similar projects for years. I spent weeks meticulously preparing the demo environment, ensuring every feature functioned perfectly, and customizing the interface to address the specific needs the hospital had expressed during preliminary meetings. 3 days before the scheduled demonstration, Marcus called me into his office. Bradley was already there, lounging in a chair with that perpetual smirk on his face. "Good news," Marcus announced. "Bradley will be co-leading the Memorial Hospital demo with you." I struggled to maintain my composure. Co-leading the demo environment is already configured and ready. I have been working on it for weeks. "Yes, and Bradley has some excellent ideas to enhance what you have built," Marcus replied smoothly. "He will handle the presentation aspects and strategic overview, while you can manage the technical details in a supporting role." As I left the office, I overheard Marcus telling Bradley, "This is your chance to shine. The board will be watching, and a successful outcome here could mean big things for your future with the company." The night before the demonstration, I received an alert on my phone at 11:30, indicating unusual activity in the demo environment. Someone was making significant changes to the configuration I had carefully prepared. I immediately logged in remotely and discovered Bradley actively modifying the system, adding flashy but untested features and altering the workflow I had designed. I tried calling him, but he did not answer. I sent an urgent text. "Please stop making changes to the demo environment. These modifications have not been tested and could cause system instability." His reply came a few minutes later, adding some improvements. "Trust me, the clients will love this." By midnight, the entire demo environment had crashed. Critical services were unresponsive, and the custom interface was displaying error messages instead of the sleek dashboard I had designed. I called Bradley repeatedly with no answer. Finally, at nearly 1 a.m, I received a panicked text from him. "Something is wrong with the system. Fix it as soon as possible." I drove to the office, arriving around 2 a.m, and spent the next 5 hours rebuilding major portions of the demo environment from backups and manually reconfiguring the elements that Bradley had broken. As dawn broke, I received a text from Marcus. "Whatever it takes, make sure Bradley looks good tomorrow. The board chairman will be attending." By 9 a.m, running on no sleep and multiple cups of coffee, I had the system functioning perfectly again. The meeting with Memorial Hospital representatives was scheduled for 10. I had just enough time to go to the restroom, splash water on my face, and change into the spare blouse I kept in my office. The demonstration began with Bradley confidently stepping forward to greet the hospital executives. "Thank you all for coming today. I am excited to show you the custom solution I have designed for Memorial Regional's specific needs." I stood in the background, fighting the urge to correct his blatant lie. For the next 30 minutes, Bradley presented my work as his own, describing features I had implemented, as if they had been his ideas. The hospital's chief technology officer seemed impressed, but began asking specific technical questions about system integration and data migration processes. Bradley stammered clearly out of his depth. "Those are excellent questions, very insightful. The system has been designed with those considerations in mind." As he floundered, I stepped forward. "If I may address those specific points," I interjected smoothly, providing detailed explanations of how the system would integrate with their existing infrastructure and the specific protocols we would use for secure data migration. The CTO nodded appreciatively. "That is exactly what we needed to know. Thank you for that clarity." The remainder of the demonstration went well, with Bradley continuing to present while I fielded the technical questions. By the end, the hospital executives seemed genuinely impressed with the solution, asking for a follow-up meeting to discuss implementation timelines. After they left, Marcus gathered the team in the conference room. "Excellent work today, everyone. Particularly you, Bradley. Your presentation skills really sold the solution, and your quick thinking when addressing their concerns was impressive." I sat in stunned silence as he continued praising Bradley, making no mention of my overnight work to fix the crashed system or my intervention during the technical questions. When Jackson attempted to point out my contribution, Marcus smoothly changed the subject. Later that afternoon, I approached Diana from HR, hoping for some objective perspective on the situation. I feel like my contributions are being deliberately overlooked. I explained, detailing the events of the past 24 hours. Is there anything that can be done about this? Diana's expression was sympathetic but resigned. Off the record, Trudy, my hands are tied here. Marcus has the full support of the board and Bradley is being groomed for leadership. I have heard other complaints, but there is little I can do when the directives are coming from the top. The following week, I was excluded from a strategic planning meeting for the first time in years. When I asked Marcus about it, he claimed it was an oversight, but the meeting notes I later obtained from Rachel told a different story. The document included a section labeled IT Department Transition Planning that outlined a 6-month timeline for knowledge transfer and leadership restructuring. I was accidentally copied on an email chain discussing the Memorial Hospital implementation, in which Marcus wrote Bradley will take point on this project as part of his transition to department leadership. Ensure Trudy provides all necessary support and documentation. The realization hit me hard. They were planning to replace me with Bradley. 8 years of building and maintaining their entire infrastructure, and they intended to hand it over to someone who could barely configure a basic workstation without breaking it. I requested a meeting with Marcus to clarify my position and future with the company. The conversation was brief and disheartening. Trudy, you have been an asset to this company, but we need forward-thinking leadership in IT. He said, not quite meeting my eyes. Bradley brings fresh perspectives and strategic vision. He crashed the entire demo environment the night before $1 million presentation, I pointed out. I was here until 7 in the morning fixing his mistakes. Marcus waved dismissively. Everyone makes mistakes during the learning process. You should try to be more like Bradley, focused on the big picture, instead of getting caught up in technical details. I left his office feeling like I had entered some bizarre alternate universe where competence was a liability and connections were all that mattered. Little did I know, the worst was yet to come. The beginning of the end came on a Monday morning when Marcus called an all-hands meeting to announce that Nexus Technologies had secured a contract with Sunrise Healthcare Network, a chain of 17 hospitals across 3 states. This would be our largest implementation yet, with an aggressive 6-week timeline for the initial rollout. This is a transformative opportunity for our company, Marcus declared, his voice brimming with self-satisfaction. The successful execution of this project will establish us as the leading healthcare management system provider in the region. I noticed Bradley standing next to Marcus, practically preening as if he had personally secured the contract. My stomach tightened with apprehension, suspecting what was coming next. To ensure the success of this crucial project, Marcus continued, I am appointing Bradley Fletcher as project lead for the Sunrise implementation. Murmurs rippled through the room. Several people glanced in my direction, clearly confused by this decision. I maintained a neutral expression, though internally I was reeling. Bradley had been with the company for less than 3 months and had demonstrated no ability to manage even basic system configurations, let alone a complex multi-site implementation. After the announcement, Marcus called an emergency planning meeting for the Sunrise project. I was not invited, despite being the only person who fully understood the systems that would need to be integrated. When I pointed this out to Marcus, he dismissed my concern. Bradley will brief you on what you need to know, he said curtly. He is developing the strategic approach, and you will handle the technical execution under his direction. The week progressed with Bradley holding meetings where he made grand promises about implementation timelines without consulting anyone who actually understood the work involved. I attempted to provide realistic assessments of the technical challenges, only to be talked over or dismissed. We need innovative thinking, not naysaying, Bradley said loudly during one meeting when I pointed out that his proposed authentication system would violate healthcare privacy regulations. By Friday afternoon, I was mentally exhausted from the constant battles and deliberate marginalization. I was updating security certificates when my phone rang. It was Marcus's assistant informing me that he wanted to see me in his office immediately. I found Marcus sitting behind his large mahogany desk with Bradley lounging in a chair to the side, scrolling through his phone. Marcus gestured for me to sit. Trudy, we need to discuss your role in the Sunrise Healthcare implementation, he began, his tone condescending. This project represents a significant opportunity for the company, and we need everyone fully committed to its success. I nodded, waiting for him to continue, though I already sensed where this was heading. Bradley has outlined an ambitious integration strategy. Marcus continued, gesturing toward his nephew, who briefly glanced up from his phone. Given the tight timeline, we need you to provide your full support to ensure Bradley has everything he needs to succeed. What exactly does that mean? I asked, keeping my voice level. Marcus leaned forward, his expression hardening slightly. It means complete knowledge transfer. Bradley needs to understand every aspect of our systems. You will need to document all processes, provide admin credentials, and stay available after hours to double-check his work and answer any questions. So you want me to do all the work while he gets all the credit? I asked, unable to keep the incredulity from my voice. Bradley snorted derisively, still looking at his phone. Marcus shot him a warning glance before turning back to me. This is not about credit, Trudy. This is about the future of the company. Bradley represents the next generation of leadership at Nexus. Your job is to ensure he has the knowledge he needs to move us forward. And what about my regular responsibilities? The security updates, system maintenance, and support tickets that keep our current clients operational. You will need to handle those as well, of course, Marcus replied dismissively. We cannot let service levels drop during this transition. The word transition hung in the air between us. In that moment, everything became crystal clear. This was not a temporary situation or a test of my team spirit. They were systematically pushing me out, extracting my knowledge before discarding me. Let me make sure I understand, I said carefully. You want me to train Bradley on systems I built, give him access to everything, work overtime to fix his mistakes, continue my regular duties, and accept that he will take credit for any success. Marcus's expression hardened. This is Bradley's chance to prove himself. If you cannot be a team player and support the company's future, perhaps you should consider whether this is the right place for you. Bradley looked up from his phone, a smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. The implied threat hung in the air between us. Either babysit Bradley through this project and make him look good, or resign, Marcus said bluntly. What is it going to be? In that moment, something shifted inside me. 8 years of dedication, of solving problems no one else could tackle, of building systems that had made millions for this company. All of it meant nothing compared to nepotism and office politics. I stood up slowly, a strange calm settling over me. I will make this simple for you, I said quietly. I walked to my desk, ignoring the curious glances from colleagues. I collected my personal items, a framed photo of my parents, my coffee mug, and a small plant Jackson had given me for my last birthday. I placed them in my bag, put on my coat, and walked toward the exit. Marcus emerged from his office, his face flushed with anger. Where do you think you are going? We are not finished with this discussion. I turned to face him, aware that the entire office had fallen silent watching the confrontation. Actually, we are, I replied calmly before walking out the door without another word. The drive home was a blur of emotions. Anger surged through me at the injustice of the situation. Fear followed close behind as I thought about my mortgage, car payments, and the job market. But beneath it all was a surprising sense of liberation. For the first time in years, I had chosen my dignity over the company's demands. As I pulled into my driveway, my phone began buzzing with texts and calls from coworkers. Jackson wanted to know what happened. Rachel expressed concern. Even Diana from HR sent a message asking if I was okay. I silenced the phone and went inside. That evening, I sat on my couch, alternating between panic about my future and satisfaction at having finally stood up for myself. I had enough savings to manage for a few months, and my skills were in demand. I would be fine professionally, but the sense of betrayal still stung deeply. By Saturday morning, the panic had subsided, replaced by clarity and determination. I had not formally resigned. I had simply left after an ultimatum. There was an important distinction there, one that would become very significant in the days ahead. Saturday morning, I woke early, despite my emotional exhaustion. With a clear head, I pulled out my employment contract and the company IT policies I had helped create years ago. I spread the documents across my kitchen table and began methodically reviewing them, highlighter in hand. Several key points immediately stood out. First, as primary systems administrator, I was still legally responsible for the integrity and security of all company systems until formally relieved of duty or replaced through proper protocols. Second, my contract specified that any termination required written notice and a formal transition period for technical handover. Third, there were specific clauses regarding intellectual property and system access that protected both the company and me as an employee. I had not resigned. I had walked out after an inappropriate ultimatum, but I had not formally submitted resignation. Technically, I was still employed, and my access credentials were still valid. Most importantly, I was still legally obligated to ensure system security and integrity. I brewed a fresh cup of coffee and considered my options carefully. I had no intention of sabotaging the company or its clients. Patient care depended on those systems functioning properly. However, I also had a responsibility to protect my professional reputation and ensure proper system handover. After careful consideration, I decided on a course of action that would be both ethical and legally defensible. I would document everything, create proper backups, and implement standard security protocols for administrator transition. Nothing malicious, nothing that would harm the company or its clients, simply proper professional procedures. I connected to the company network remotely, using my authorized credentials. My first action was to create a complete backup of all my work documentation and communications from the past 8 years. This included email exchanges with Marcus and Bradley's system logs showing unauthorized changes, documentation of overtime hours never compensated, and evidence of my contributions to major projects. Next, I reviewed the access logs from the past 3 months, documenting each instance where Bradley had made changes that required my intervention to fix. I compiled these into a comprehensive report, complete with timestamps, description of errors, and hours spent resolving each issue. Then I implemented proper authentication safeguards according to industry best practices. I did not disable any accounts or change any passwords. Instead, I activated the security protocol I had designed years ago but never implemented due to Marcus's insistence that it was unnecessary bureaucracy. This protocol required formal handover of primary admin status with board-level approval for any changes to critical system access. If a primary administrator was terminated without proper handover, the system would automatically transfer admin status and notify board members of potential security concerns. I set up an automated out-of-office message directing all technical inquiries to Bradley and Marcus since they had made it clear they considered me dispensable. I made screenshots of Marcus's texts ordering me to make Bradley look good at any cost and compiled evidence of salary discrimination based on the finance records Rachel had shared. Throughout this process, I was careful to ensure that nothing I did could be construed as sabotage or malicious action. I was simply implementing proper security protocols and documenting the situation thoroughly. Every action I took was in accordance with my responsibilities as primary systems administrator and the legal obligations outlined in my contract. After 4 hours of methodical work, I completed a final remote logout, knowing that everything was properly documented and secured. I then turned my attention to updating my resume and reaching out to industry contacts. By Sunday evening, I had scheduled 2 interviews for the following week and received several messages from former colleagues expressing interest in hiring someone with my skills. I turned my phone to silent, expecting that by Monday morning, I would receive a formal termination notice. What I did not expect was just how quickly things would unravel at Nexus Technologies without me there to hold everything together. Monday morning arrived with an email from Human Resources containing a termination letter citing job abandonment as the reason. Interestingly, there was no request for system credentials or knowledge transfer, just a curt notice that my final paycheck would be processed and my benefits terminated immediately. I smiled slightly, realizing they had no idea about the security protocols I had implemented. They assumed they could simply cut me off and move forward with Bradley at the helm. Their oversight was about to become apparent very quickly. The first batch of missed calls began around 2 in the afternoon. 3 from Marcus, 2 from Bradley, and 1 from the payroll manager. I let them all go to voicemail, curious about what had prompted this sudden need to contact the employee they had just terminated. Jackson texted me around 3. Complete chaos here. Payroll processing failed. Bradley cannot access admin panels. Marcus is having a meltdown. I replied simply, "Sounds stressful. Hope it works out." By evening, my phone showed 12 missed calls. The voicemails progressively revealed the unfolding disaster. The first from Marcus was demanding to know what I had done to the systems. The second asked for admin credentials immediately. The third contained thinly veiled threats about legal action if I had sabotaged company property. Bradley's voicemails were less threatening and more panicked. The systems keep showing some message about primary admin transferred, and I cannot override it, he said, his voice tight with stress. Call me back immediately. Tuesday morning brought a new wave of calls. Rachel from finance called to tell me they couldn't process monthly client billing because the financial systems were requiring authentication they didn't have. Diana from HR called to say they couldn't process my termination in the system because they were locked out of the personnel database. By Tuesday afternoon, my voicemail was full. I cleared it just in time to receive a message from Jackson that made me laugh out loud. Bradley had a complete meltdown in the status meeting, he reported. When Marcus asked why the Sunrise demo environment wasn't ready, Bradley started yelling that the systems were impossible to understand and that you had sabotaged everything. Marcus had to physically escort him out of the room. Wednesday brought an interesting development. An email appeared in my inbox from CEO Alexander Hamilton, who had always been a distant figure leaving operations to Marcus while he focused on business development and investor relations. The subject line read, "Its system status report requested." The brief message stated, "All department heads are requested to provide a complete status report on IT systems affecting their operations. Please detail any issues encountered since Monday and their impact on business functions. This information is needed for an emergency board meeting scheduled for Thursday morning." Jackson called during his lunch break. "You would not believe what is happening here," he said, his voice hushed. Alexander himself came down to the IT department asking questions. Bradley tried to explain the situation, but could barely string a coherent sentence together. He finally admitted he doesn't understand how any of the core systems work. "What is Marcus saying?" I asked, genuinely curious. "He's been locked in his office most of the day. The rumor is that the hospital chain is threatening to pull out of the deal because the demo environment shows some admin transfer message instead of their customized interface." On Thursday, the tone of Marcus's voicemails shifted dramatically. The first message of the day contained legal threats. "This is your final warning to provide all access credentials and remove whatever blocks you've put in place. The company will pursue all legal remedies for this sabotage." But by afternoon, his approach had changed entirely. "Trudy, perhaps we've had a misunderstanding. Your contributions to the company have always been valued. Please call me so we can discuss your return under favorable terms." The most enlightening call came from Rachel in finance. The board is asking questions about why a single employee's departure could cause system-wide issues. They're reviewing all department operations, including executive decisions. Marcus looks like he's about to have a heart attack. Friday morning, I woke to find 38 missed calls on my phone from the past 5 days. The most recent was from CEO Alexander Hamilton himself, time-stamped 9 p.m. the previous evening. His message was direct but not threatening. Trudy, this is Alexander Hamilton. I understand there's been a situation with your departure that was not handled appropriately. The board has reviewed certain decisions made by Marcus Fletcher and would like to discuss the matter with you directly. This is not about assigning blame, but finding a resolution that acknowledges your contributions to Nexus Technologies. Please call me at your earliest convenience. I sat with my coffee considering my options. I had already received 2 excellent job offers during the week, both with higher salaries and better titles than what I had at Nexus. I had no obligation to help the company that had treated me so poorly. Yet I also felt a certain responsibility toward the systems I had built, the clients who depended on them, and colleagues like Jackson who were caught in the crossfire. After careful consideration, I decided to hear what Alexander had to say. I texted him, I can meet tomorrow morning at Riverfront Cafe at 10. I'll bring documentation of recent events. I deliberately chose a neutral location rather than returning to the office on their terms. His response came quickly, I'll be there. Thank you for your willingness to talk. As I prepared the documentation I would bring to this meeting, I reflected on the extraordinary turn of events. 5 days, 38 missed calls, and a company in chaos, all because they had undervalued the person who silently kept everything running. I wasn't seeking revenge, but I couldn't deny a certain satisfaction in knowing that my worth had finally become visible, even if it took my absence to make it apparent. Saturday morning arrived crisp and sunny as I made my way to Riverfront Cafe. I had dressed professionally in a blazer and slacks, bringing a laptop and a folder of printed documentation. I arrived 15 minutes early, selected a quiet table in the corner, and ordered a coffee while I waited. Alexander Hamilton arrived precisely at 10, dressed casually in jeans and a sweater rather than his usual business attire. He spotted me immediately and walked over, extending his hand. Thank you for meeting with me, Trudy, he said, his tone respectful. I appreciate your willingness to talk despite the circumstances. After ordering coffee, he got straight to the point. I want to start by acknowledging that the company has mishandled this situation badly. The board was not aware of how Marcus was managing the IT department or his decision to place his nephew in a position he was clearly not qualified for. I listened silently, neither agreeing nor disagreeing. When your departure resulted in widespread system issues, we began investigating what happened, he continued. What we found was disturbing, to say the least. I opened my laptop and turned it toward him. I've prepared a comprehensive timeline of events, I said professionally, including documentation of Bradley's errors, Marcus's directives to cover them up, and the ultimatum that led to my departure. For the next hour, I walked Alexander through the evidence I had compiled. I showed him the logs of Bradley's system changes that crashed the demo environment, the text from Marcus ordering me to make Bradley look good, and the salary disparities Rachel had revealed. I explained the properly documented security protocols I had implemented before leaving, which required formal administrator handover, all in accordance with industry best practices. I did not sabotage anything, I clarified. I simply implemented the security measures that should have been in place all along. The system is requesting proper authentication and handover, which is standard procedure for any company with sensitive data. Alexander's expression grew increasingly troubled as he reviewed the evidence. This is not how we operate, or at least not how we should be operating, he said finally. The board was told that Bradley was being mentored for an eventual leadership role, not that he was being given authority over critical systems he didn't understand. He closed my laptop and handed it back to me. The board held an emergency meeting yesterday. Marcus has been removed as director and placed on administrative leave pending a full investigation. Bradley has been reassigned to an entry-level position where he can receive proper training if he chooses to stay. I nodded, appreciating the directness, but waiting to hear what would come next. We would like you to return to Nexus Technologies, Alexander continued, with a promotion, significant compensation adjustment, and reporting directly to me until we find a suitable replacement for Marcus. I had anticipated this offer and prepared my response. I appreciate the offer, but I would need more than that to consider returning, I said calmly. The issues went beyond Marcus and Bradley. They revealed structural problems in how the company values technical expertise versus connections. Alexander nodded. What would it take to bring you back? A CTO position with executive-level compensation, complete authority to restructure the IT department based on merit, and a seat on the leadership team with direct input on technical decisions affecting the company, I replied without hesitation. He looked surprised for a moment, then thoughtful. You're asking for significant changes. I'm asking to be valued appropriately for my contributions and expertise, I corrected. The past week has demonstrated what happens when technical infrastructure is treated as an afterthought rather than a core business asset. After further discussion, we reached an agreement that satisfied both of us. I would return as Chief Technology Officer with executive compensation authority to rebuild the IT team properly and a position on the Leadership Council. In return, I would implement proper knowledge transfer protocols and build sustainable systems that didn't depend entirely on any single person. The following Monday, I returned to Nexus Technologies. The atmosphere was noticeably different as I walked through the office. Colleagues who had previously taken my work for granted now understood its value. Jackson greeted me with a relieved smile and a simple, "About time." My first actions as CTO were to stabilize the systems, create a proper development environment for the Sunrise Healthcare project, and begin implementing a merit-based structure for the IT department. Marcus had indeed been demoted and reassigned to a non-management position in a different department. Bradley had chosen to leave the company rather than accept an entry-level position. Over the following months, I built a proper IT team with qualified professionals who were compensated fairly for their expertise. I implemented a genuine mentoring program for junior staff, who showed actual aptitude and interest in technology. Most importantly, I established clear boundaries between work and personal life, something I had failed to do during my first 8 years with the company. The Sunrise Healthcare implementation proceeded successfully under my direct leadership, completed on time, and with all features functioning as promised. The client specifically commented on the professionalism and expertise of our team, a validation that meant more to me than any internal recognition. The most significant change, however, was in how I perceived my own worth. I no longer felt the need to prove myself by working weekends or accepting less than I deserved. I had learned that true value doesn't come from making yourself indispensable, then becoming invisible. It comes from building sustainable systems, developing others, and insisting on appropriate recognition for your contributions. Several colleagues approached me in the weeks after my return, sharing their own experiences of being undervalued or overlooked. I encouraged them all to document their contributions, know their worth, and establish healthy boundaries. A culture shift began to take hold throughout the company, as people realized that expertise should be valued over connections. One afternoon, Alexander stopped by my new office. "The board is impressed with the changes you've implemented," he said. "Client satisfaction metrics are up, and employee turnover in IT has dropped to 0. People perform better when they're valued appropriately," I replied simply. He nodded thoughtfully. "The situation with you and Marcus taught us an expensive lesson, one I'm determined not to repeat. Looking back now, I don't regret walking out that Friday afternoon. Sometimes it takes a dramatic gesture to reveal what should have been obvious all along. The systems we build, the problems we solve, and the knowledge we hold have real measurable value. Never let anyone convince you to diminish that value for their convenience or ego. Remember, your worth isn't determined by those who undervalue you. Sometimes you have to walk away to show them exactly what they're losing. Document everything, know your legal rights, and never compromise your professional integrity. The right opportunity will value what you bring to the table, whether that's with your current company after a necessary shakeup or somewhere new that appreciates you from day one. Have you ever had to stand up for your worth in your career? Share your experience in the comments. How did you handle it, and what was the outcome? Like this video if it resonated with you. Subscribe for more workplace stories and share it with anyone who needs a reminder of their professional value. Thanks for listening to my journey, and remember, Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's simply allowing people to experience the natural consequences of undervaluing what you bring to the table.